everyone, and welcome to the Burgess podcast, the show where we are opening up conversations about life at sea, discussing hot topics within the industry, as well as offering mental health support and promoting wellbeing for crew. We also have our very own in-house recruitment team, so if you or anyone you know is currently looking for a new position, please send your updated CV to recruitment@burgessyachts.com or check out our recruitment posts on Instagram @Burgess Yacht Crew. Burgess offices are collaborating with crew this month to celebrate Movember. To find out more about what we're doing or to donate, please head over to our Instagram page @Burgess Yacht Crew. Hi everyone, and welcome to our International Men's Day special. This month we are celebrating International Men's Day and Movember, both of which support and raise awareness for men's mental health. To help us discuss this topic, we are very pleased to be joined by Burgess Technical Manager and ex-seafarer Steve Galloway-Kirkland. Like many of us, Steve has faced his own demons when it comes to mental health, such as stress, anxiety and burnout. But by putting some self-care practices in place, Steve has learnt to manage his well-being and is taking this one step further by taking the first steps in becoming a counsellor. So he really does have a unique perspective on understanding mental health from both sides. Steve, thank you so much for joining us today and helping us to open up the conversation on men's mental health. Can you give us a brief overview on your background and what led you to train or to start training as a counsellor?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me here, Lorena. It is a bit of a privilege, I feel. So my background is as a marine engineer. I've sailed with the Royal Navy, and then I sailed with the Merchant Navy on the Shell's LNG fleet. And then my last sea job was as chief engineer on super yachts. So I'm totally a marine engineer. But I was drawn to start my counselling skills course as I've always been interested in people, and specifically the health and well-being. Having worked with a lot of people and watching people reacting differently to pressure, I was sort of always concerned about how they're feeling and how they're getting on. So that's why I've started on the path to counselling skills, and I also feel like I'm quite a good listener. I've been told that quite a lot in my career.
And it's one of the key skills, isn't it, in any form of therapy, counselling, or even just support, is just that truly listening.
It's the principal skill. It's all about listening. Counsellors don't offer solutions or advice. They just listen to what their client is telling them, and then they may reflect back some things to them, but they don't offer solutions or advice. It's just about listening, making it a safe space for them.
Yeah, and giving them the support and space to help reach their own conclusion as to how to deal with the life situation that's been thrown at them.
Absolutely. All your answers are within yourself.
Yeah.
And sometimes it needs a bit of teasing to get them out.
Yeah. So we're talking today for International Men's Day, so we're focusing specifically on men's mental health. What do we mean when we're talking about mental health?
It's such a wide term, but I would suggest that anything that's having an effect on someone's emotional or psychological or social well-being is mental health. It's as wide as that.
And I guess it's how we handle stress when life throws us a curveball, which it inevitably does. It's quite a stressful world we live in at the moment, and it's how we handle that stress and how we think, feel, act, and relate to others.
That's true. It's having an awareness of stress, because we all work day to day with a level of stress, but it's having an awareness where that level of stress has maybe become too much. So sort of common warning signs could be feeling stressed, feeling different to normal, or having disrupted sleep. I've had that where I'm concerned about a thing at work, and it wakes me up in the middle of the night and I'm thinking about it. So that's a warning sign for stress, where it's disrupting your sleep, or hyper focusing on something, or not focusing, having a complete lack of focus, But I mean, simply going back to what is mental health, just any changes in your emotional or psychological well-being is a warning signs.
Yeah, and when we're talking about the warning signs to look out for either in your colleagues or in yourself? Those warning signs can be very different for everyone, and they can be very extreme opposite ends of the scale, from little or no energy to hyperactiveness. It's any change, I guess. Is that what you're looking for? A change in a person's routine or personality?
Absolutely. You could have the life and soul of the party who suddenly goes really quiet and becomes introverted, or you could have the introvert, the person who sits and watches, and they suddenly start exhibiting stranger behaviours. They're going out partying more when they never used to. So that could be warning signs. Yeah.
Hmm. And on a yacht, would those signs be more obvious because you're all living so closely together?
Quite possibly on a yacht, on a ship, you become a family. You become in a relationship with your co-workers, and you become like a family. So you sometimes become more attuned to how people are. So people may notice that you've changed before you do. They may have that awareness before you do.
Yeah. So, of course, mental health issues are across the board, but like we said earlier, we're talking today about specifically about men's mental health. What would you say are the biggest challenges or struggles that men in particular face when it comes to mental health? I read some like really frightening statistics the other day that globally, on average, one man dies by suicide every minute of every day, and 3 out of 4 suicides in the UK are by men. Now that's really frightening numbers. What are the struggles that men face?
So I think there's a lot of societal and peer struggles. There's phrases we're familiar with: boys don't cry, or why don't you man up or grow up here. So there's that sort of level of almost like a toxic masculinity floating around. But I think also perhaps men are a bit less chatty, or they may chat about not how they're feeling, but they may just chat about other things, sport, or football or work. They may not feel comfortable chatting about themselves or how they're feeling, or being honest about it.
Do you think that's because the outdated stereotypes that you were talking about earlier, the men are the hunter-gatherer, the dominating position of power, mustn't show any weakness, all leaves very little room for showing that vulnerability of having poor mental health. Do you think that affects how men speak about their mental health?
Absolutely. I think it gives them a sort of irrational fear of being thought less of, because they are supposed to be this apex, sort of top of the tree type person, especially at maybe the senior management teams, where people look up to them. But actually, when they're being looked up to, they have a responsibility to show that they do have vulnerabilities or weaknesses. That sets a good example.
Mm. And I mean, the key message has got to be, hasn't it, Steve, that it's okay, to be vulnerable, to have moments of, feeling not okay. It's a tough life on board a yacht as well. It's okay that men can admit that they're struggling.
It's absolutely fine and it's perfectly normal. I mean, it's a very much a phrase at the moment of it's okay to not be okay. It's quite a recent tagline. And just checking in with your friends or your colleagues, and are you okay? How are things? Just people making themselves available for the colleagues
Mm.
can sometimes just make a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. So looking specifically about, work environment on board, what aspects of working on board a yacht or a ship do you think could be detrimental to a man's mental health?
Well, I mean, first of all, when you work on a ship, it can feel that you're always at work. You live on the ship, you work on the ship. When I was on a yacht, the engine room was 3 meters away from my cabin door, so you were always at work, even when you're off work. So it's hard to have a boundary. I'm at work. I'm not at work. I'm on time off. That's the thing. Even when you're still living on the ship. But also, we know how yachts work. When you're on charter, the busy times, you're being put under stress. You've been almost worked to the point of exhaustion, and there's still a pressure to work. So I think ships are quite unique workplaces in that way, that you can be called upon at any moment. And even when you're off, some incident could flare up and you have to come and respond to it. It's hard to put a boundary in. When you shut your cabin door and you go to sleep or you go to bed, you often expect to be woken up. Someone to knock on the door, or as an engineer or a deck officer, alarms to go off. Things are calling out that's out with your control.
Yeah, I guess you always have to be switched on. There's no switched off time. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it feels like that. It feels like that. It takes a lot of self-discipline to switch off, to say, I'm off now, and I can't be disturbed for the next few hours.
So having that support network on board the yacht is so important, isn't it?
Yeah, you have to be able to feel that you can speak freely to people, and if you are flagging, if you are excessively tired, or you're exhausted, or you're losing focus, you have to be able to know that you can go to someone, ideally someone's further up the food chain, either be the captain or the chief engineer, your HOD, and have the freedom to speak up and say, I'm really struggling at the moment. It may not be time to cancel Christmas. It may just be that you need an arm around you, or you just need to sit and have a chat and, have a half-hour break, an extra half-hour break, for example, or.
And that's, again, a very important message that I think we've been, working hard to promote, is that when we talk mental health, it doesn't automatically mean depression or, suicidal thoughts, or, there is a scale. And if somebody comes to talk to you about poor mental health, it's very easy for people to automatically think the worst. But actually, like you said, sometimes you just need someone to talk to. You just need to vent.
Going back to what I was saying earlier on, the key thing is just to listen. It's literally just to listen. People very rarely come to you to have their problem solved, but they may want to talk about the problems. So the key thing is just to listen to them. And one of the things that we get taught on the counselling skills course is to be non-judgmental. If the person who's going through an issue or a crisis feels they're being judged, they'll just clam up, they'll stop talking. But if you can treat them with empathy and be non-judgmental to them, quite often the problem, just by being heard, can be resolved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're all very, in today's busy lifestyles that we lead, we're all very quick to catastrophize, I think, when a small problem on top of a small problem on top of a small problem, and these thoughts are just whirling round and round in your head, and it just becomes such a cycle that just sinks you lower and lower. And like you said, just that ability to talk to somebody about it, to air it, just helps you put things into perspective and actually reach your own conclusion, like you said earlier. And it just helps you put some order in your thoughts and help you realize it's, not that it's not as bad as it sounds, but just to create some order in your own mind. You just need to talk, don't you, rather than just letting it.
Absolutely. And not just talk, but be felt that you've been listened to.
Yeah.
That's important. If you go with a problem, it may seem insignificant to the person that you're speaking with, but to you, it could be the very thing that's stopping you from sleeping through the night. So everybody's problem or issue is personal, and that has to be respected by whoever they've chosen to feel comfortable speaking with, the listener.
And you mentioned earlier about hierarchy and having that person to talk to that ultimately ends with the captain. Where does the captain go?
Well, that's a good point. I mean, captains of ship, they go by the title of master, and it gives them nowhere to run to. They're the master, they're in charge, but they're under probably the most pressure out of everybody. So, I mean, there are various organisations they could go to. For example, if they're crewed by Burgess, they could come to us. They could come to the people in the office. We've got the DPA, we've got yourself and the crew services. I'm a technical manager. I try and speak with my yachts frequently. The yacht managers do the same. So there's always somebody that they can speak with. And if that core principle of not being judged is displayed, then they're more likely to open up and air their issues.
Yeah. And also the ISWAN Yacht Crew Helpline, which we do promote, a wonderful free resource for all crew, not just captains. But if you're not comfortable talking to somebody on board, then there is a confidential helpline that you can go to talk to somebody confidentially that doesn't know you. So we said earlier that you, as a lot of us, have faced your own demons when it comes to mental health. Can you tell us a little bit about the self-care package which you adopted to help you manage your well-being?
Sure. So I was quite focused. I realized that I wasn't sleeping very well. This was in a previous job to what I'm doing just now. I wasn't sleeping well. I was hyper focusing on work. And I spoke with my wife and I said, I need to figure out some things to do for self-care. So one of the things I picked up was I've always wanted to learn to play the guitar. So I dusted off my really old guitar and got it back in tune and stuff. And it was a great piece of self-care for me because I couldn't play this guitar. So my whole world was focused on trying to play the guitar. I had no space in my head for work. So that was something that I had in my pocket. But speaking to people, friends, family, looking after your exercise and diet. If you like to go for a walk, you don't have to be running marathons every day, but if you like to get off the vessel when you can and go for a walk, that's nice simple exercise. Taking care not to drink too much alcohol is another one. That's a very easy route to wander down. As you're feeling a bit down, you say, "I'll just go on a few beers," and then you turn into a lot more than a few, or some glasses of wine. And trying to maintain a discipline of a sleep discipline, so it's that thing of, like I said earlier, shutting the cabin door. Look, guys, I really need a good night's sleep, and trying to get a good sleep, which can be difficult on yachts. I appreciate that. But I think one of the big things for me would be having the courage to actually set a boundary. As a chief engineer, I've got a lot of real estate on the yacht. Everything that could break sort of almost comes under my remit. But sometimes I need to set a boundary and say, actually, to the second engineer, if this breaks, I'd like you to fix it. I need to be not working tonight. Or if you can't fix it, at least have a shot and come and see me. So it's saying no to work sometimes is a big part. It's very easy to take on everything
Yeah.
and more and more and more, and you've got no space left for yourself.
So managing your day, managing your workload.
Yes.
And a lot of the advice that you've given, they may seem like small acts, sleep well, eat well, but it's that self-care, regular self-care can have a massive impact, can't it?
Yeah, and it's as personal as your own issues. So whatever makes you feel better or happier,
Mm.
that's self-care, you
And
know.
it may not be the cure for a mental health illness, but it helps you to understand what causes or triggers your symptoms and what coping techniques work for you. Because we're all different, and you learning to play the guitar it must almost be like a sort of meditation, just quietening the mind and just focusing on one thing. So that hobby could be very different for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Like I say, everything's individual. If you may not want to be the next sort of Jimi Hendrix, but you may take time to meditate or to read books or go for long walks, learn a new language, just whatever it is that you can deploy to take your mind off work is
Yeah, and
self-care.
de-stress. So, I mean, we've covered this briefly, but what can men do on board to open up about their mental health and seek help, to fade out this stigma that is out there about men talking about their emotions?
I would say don't be afraid to reach out for help. That's number one. If you are feeling emotionally or psychologically different, or you're feeling vulnerable, don't be afraid to reach out. You know, Look for someone that you feel comfortable talking with. It could be your family, it could be your friends, it could be professional. It could be a professional counsellor or therapist. these counsellors and therapists are they're safe spaces. They're completely confidential. You can tell them anything, and it stays between you. And I think, like you've mentioned, Lorraine, at the organisation that the crew can phone up for that sort of professional
Yeah.
assistance.
Yeah, definitely. Again, a message that I do worry sometimes that I am very repetitive, but it's just a message that we keep trying to promote is that you're never alone. And when times are tough and you do feel isolated on board a yacht, there is always someone to talk to. There are always resources available, whether it is, the yacht management company, the yacht manager, the DPA, whether it's ISWAN, the yacht crew helpline. There's always somebody there to talk to, and it's okay to want to talk.
100%.
And on that note, thank you so much, Steve. It's been a really good chat, and yeah, it's been interesting to listen to the techniques that you've adopted, and yeah, let's maybe all learn to play the guitar.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Lorena.
Steve.
It's been a privilege to be here.
Thank you.